The Croods were an ordinary family, living in an extraordinary time full of strange creatures and landscapes. So they spent most days safely inside their cave and only went out to hunt for food. Grug was a worrywart and insisted that his family follow several rules that were painted on the cave walls.
Never not be afraid.
He constantly reminded them. One morning, Grug led a hunting expedition.
Breakfast formation.
He called as the Croods sprinted to the hunting grounds. There, they snatched a huge blue egg from an empty nest. Coyotes, trip gerbils, jackrobats, and a bear owl tried to steal the egg, but the Croods escaped by riding a giant giraffe home. Later, Grug's daughter Eep climbed a canyon wall to feel the setting sunshine.
Is she still out there?
Grug worried.
You know she hates the cave, Grug.
His wife Ugga replied. Grug found Eep perched high on the rock face. Suddenly, a giant bear owl spotted Grug and attacked.
Eep! Come down!
He shouted as the bear owl charged.
That was too close.
Grug scolded from the safety of the cave. Eep climbed to her private ledge while Grug told one of his familiar stories of fear and caution. Later that night, Eep awoke to a strange light dancing through the cracks of the cave door. Despite Grug's rules, she snuck out into the darkness. Eep reached a small clearing where a brilliant light danced and leaped on the ground. Mesmerized, Eep approached the mysterious light. Suddenly, Eep sensed a presence behind her. She quickly attacked, pinning a tusked animal to the ground. But it was actually a boy named Guy in disguise. Guy explained that the light was called fire. Then he warned of coming disaster. He invited Eep to leave with him and his pet, Belt. Guy gave Eep a shell to blow into if she ever needed him. When Eep showed the shell to her family, they destroyed it.
News a big problem.
Grug scolded. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently. Grug gathered the family under his arms to protect them. When the earthquake ended, the Croods surveyed the wreckage.
Grug, the cave, it's gone.
Ugga said sadly. Grug was devastated. Then Eep called to them to look towards the horizon. As the Croods stared in wonder at the beautiful new world, a bear owl rushed towards them. The Croods jumped over the cliff to escape and tumbled down a hillside. They landed in a pile at the edge of a colorful rainforest.
We need a cave,
Grug whispered. As they traveled, the Croods encountered strange creatures. First, Grug was pummeled by a troop of punch monkeys. Then, a huge carnivore chased them to an open field. Suddenly, the carnivore retreated when it saw a flock of piranha-keets. The Croods watched in terror as the piranha-keets devoured a land whale in seconds. As the flock turned toward the Croods, Eep found a shell and blew as hard as she could. Guy heard the distress signal and raced toward the sound. Guy lit a torch and raised it to the sky as the piranha-keets swarmed. The creatures spread out to avoid the flames and flew past the Croods. After the close call, Eep explained that Guy created the fire. Grug was immediately suspicious of Guy.
Eep, don't touch him. Goodness knows where he's been,
he said. Grug's other daughter, Sandy, attacked the torch.
Sandy, no, fire is not a plaything,
Grug instructed. Then his son, Thunk, accidentally set himself on fire.
Thunk, try hiding from it in the tall, dry grass,
Grug shouted. Thunk ran into a cornfield, igniting an inferno. that resulted in a giant batch of popcorn. Guy tried to sneak away during the popcorn party, but Eep pounced on him. He told her that the earthquake was just the beginning. They had to get to higher ground. Grug was reluctant to follow Guy's plan, but agreed after Guy pointed out that mountains had caves.
Let's do it.
Grug said as he stuffed Guy into a log. The Croods ambled across the plains toward the mountain. The kids argued almost immediately.
Do you want me to turn this family around?
Grug threatened. Morale fell as the hot day dragged on and hunger set in, but Grug wanted to push on.
We'll eat when we get there,
he said. Suddenly, a giant turkey fish emerged from the tall grass.
Food fixes everything.
Grug said hopefully. Eep wanted to join the hunt.
Not you. You're still grounded.
Grug said. As Grug and Thunk bungled after the beast, Guy set a trap using a puppet. He showed Eep how to hunt with tools. The trap worked, and they caught the turkey fish. The Croods gorged themselves on their first ever cooked meal, but Grug was dejected because Guy proved to be a better hunter. He also knew that Eep was smitten with Guy. Later, Guy revealed that he was going to tomorrow.
Tomorrow isn't a place. You can't see it.
Grug protested. Guy told them it was a real place where things are better. The family trudged on again the next morning. When they reached a field of sharp coral rocks, Guy made a run for it. The Croods couldn't chase after him because they didn't have shoes. Guy realized they would never survive without his help, and Belt convinced him to return to the family. Guy was in charge now. He fastened makeshift shoes for everyone. When they encountered another troop of punch monkeys, he fed them bananas instead of fighting them. Suddenly, a torrential downpour flooded the plain. They were stranded on a tiny island.
Eep, looks dangerous.
Grug warned. Guy jumped in, however, and the Croods soon joined him. After swimming, they approached a huge maze carved into an open plain. Guy suggested they split up and try each entrance. He handed out shells in case they got lost.
I'm still in charge and we are not splitting up,
Grug insisted. But suddenly an earthquake rumbled, and the Croods tumbled into separate paths. Grug was terrified to find himself alone in the maze.
Is everyone all right?
He called.
We're okay, Grug.
Ugga reassured. The Croods discovered wondrous new things on their way through the maze. Thunk even found a Crocopup. Everyone made it out safely except for Grug.
I'll go get him,
Ugga said. Guy led the Croods to the canopy of a huge redwood tree.
Croods, get down here!
Grug shouted, but his family didn't respond. They were awestruck by the brilliant stars. Grug reluctantly climbed to the treetop. He overheard Eep say that she was going with Guy.
No, not my little girl,
he whispered sadly. Grug had to win his family back. The next morning, Grug wore a wig made of knotted grass.
What are you trying to do, Grug?
Ugga asked. Grug had been up all night coming up with ideas, including the Lifterator. To demonstrate, Grug stood on one end of a teeter-totter and tossed a boulder on the other. He flew into the sky, was hit by lightning, and smashed down on top of the boulder. Later, Guy piloted a shellboat across a lake while Ugga nursed Grug's injuries.
I thought if I could have ideas like Guy, maybe Eep wouldn't want to go with Guy,
he confessed. Once ashore, a volcanic blast startled the group. Grug spotted shelter.
Cave! Everyone inside!
He exclaimed, but nobody moved.
No more caves, Grug.
Uga said gently. Grug was furious.
Guy, run!
Uga urged. Grug tackled Guy and they tumbled down an embankment and into a tar pit. Stuck, Guy explained that he had lost his family. Guy's parents had made him promise to never hide and always follow the sun. Finally, Grug realized that Guy was good for his family.
My daughter is a lot like you.
Grug said.
We need one of your ideas.
Grug said as they struggled to get out of the tar pit. Guy quickly gathered some nearby bones and brush to create a puppet. A mecanivore near the tar pit saw the puppet. He jumped on it thinking it was real. Grug and Guy held tightly to the bones as the beast pulled them to safety. As Grug and Guy reunited with the Croods, the ground trembled and meteors streaked the sky.
Take us to tomorrow.
Grug told Guy, but a huge gulf opened, blocking their path. Grug knew the only way to save his family was to sacrifice himself. One by one, he threw them across the chasm.
I love you.
He told Eep, and then waved a final goodbye to his family. Grug retreated to a cave, where he backed into a mecanivore.
Stay back! Stay back!
But the huge animal was also frightened. Grug softly stroked its fur. A shell blast filled the air.
You're in trouble. Hang on, I'm coming!
Grug promised, and then he had a great idea. He smeared tar over a giant rib cage and tricked a flock of piranhakeets into sticking to it. They flew toward the chasm. When Grug noticed Thunk's crocopup, Douglas, he scooped him up along with several other frightened animals. Finally, they flew across the chasm and crashed safely on the other side. The Croods were overjoyed. Grug hugged his family tightly, including Guy and Belt. A beautiful vista emerged before them.
We should go there,
Grug said as they walked towards tomorrow.